What is going on, everyone? It's Brody back again with another tennis topic, and today's tennis topic is going to be my review of the Nike Zoom Vapor 11. Now, the Nike Zoom Vapor line has probably been one of Nike's longest standing and just probably most popular shoe lines in general, and this new generation of it, they've changed a few things around that you may want to take notice of. The first thing is that they've broke the traditional vapor feel of the shoe. Now, traditionally, past Vapors, they've been a lot lighter, they've been a lot less cushioned, and they've just been a lot more flexible compared to most other tennis shoes that are out there. What Nike's done with the new Vapor 11 is that they've added a little bit more of a more rigid feel to it because there's a little bit more plastic here along the side to help with toe drag, as well as this material here, while still being a little bit more flexible, it's not as flexible as what it used to be. As well as here, you can see on this side here in the back and just throughout the entirety of the shoe, there's a lot more cushioning in the shoe itself. So it's a lot heavier than what the traditional Vapors were. So if you liked the Vapors before this, like the Vapor 10 or the Vapor 9.5, the new Vapor 11 probably isn't the shoe to look at just because they've changed the feel of it so much. And like I said, it has more cushion. One thing I also noticed when I had the shoe on, especially on court, is that it did tend to feel more narrow compared to previous Nike shoes. Now, I'm always comparing back to the Vapor 10 because that is the shoe that I have and have worn before from Nike. And so you really have to notice is that when I put it on and I felt it, as I was just wearing the shoe, I had the correct size because it does tend to fit more true to size, just like most Nike shoes do. It's just the fact that with the extra plastic that they put on it, as well as the different and more flexible material that's in the toe of the shoe, the Nike shoe itself just seemed to be a little bit more narrow on my foot, whereas the previous version, even when I had it brand new, it wasn't that narrow and it never really caused that problem. I felt this one was kind of just squeezing in or coming a little bit too much to a point at the end of the shoe. So that's something that you may want to be careful with, especially if you are getting a Nike shoe. If you don't need a narrow size or a narrow fit, you may want to stay away from these. Biggest thing is Nike's typically going to be like the second most narrow shoe brand that you'll find with tennis. Typically Asics takes the cake as being the most narrow. So if you can sometimes get away with it, but you really want to be careful and make sure that you try the shoe on first before you take it out onto court or anything like that, because once you wear it onto the court, it's yours. You can't really return it and you're just kind of stuck with it. So be sure that you know what you're trying on and make sure it fits before you ever go on the court. Now, like I mentioned a little bit earlier with the shoe, it is going to be heavier. The weight on this shoe is about 15.6 ounces. Just standard, that's what you're feeling on the shoe. In comparison to that, the Nike Vapor Cage, the new cage is the Cage 4s, which is, Nike has always said it's their heavy shoe, it's their more durable shoe, it's the shoe that they have their outsole warranty on. And that's the shoe that a lot of people, if you're looking for something that's more durable, that's heavier, has a lot of cushioning, that's the shoe you look at. The Vapor Cage 4 is only about 0.2 ounces heavier than this shoe. So they've completely altered the Vapor feel in terms of everything. Like, this is not the tried and true classic Vapor that we all grew up with and that we all knew and loved. This is a completely different thing. If you're wanting the Vapor line to have a little bit more cushion to it and a Nike shoe that has a little bit more, I'll say just more flexibility, not necessarily caring as much about the cushioning and the overall playability, this shoe would do fine. But it tends to not do well, especially coming from the Vapor 10. Most people are, if they've tried the Vapor 10, they don't like this just because of how different the shoe is. And then you also have this shoe coming in at $170, which is even more expensive than the actual Vapor Cage 4 for around the same shoe that's trying to do something that it actually isn't. So with the shoe in itself, if you really want the traditional Vapor feel, you probably should look elsewhere outside of Nike because this shoe is not going to have that. This is kind of like a weird hybrid test thing that Nike did with the Vapor 10 and the Vapor Cage. I don't know why they decided to change the Vapor 10 because it was working so well. Everyone loved it. They really just enjoyed the lightweight feel, but with decent cushioning to it, as well as it just helped more players feel faster onto the court. But now they have the Vapor 11, heavier shoe, a little bit more narrow, and it's just not as well playability wise compared to the Vapor 10. So if you're looking for the shoe, it is something that you can try if you have the money and if you want a little bit more cushion out of a Nike shoe and not have it be extremely stiff. If not, and you're just wanting to stay around the Vapor 10 feel, you may want to look elsewhere. And that's why down here I do have a few recommendations for the shoe. If you like how this feels, but it's a little bit too narrow, just because it's a Nike shoe, which almost all of them are going to be narrow, then you can look at other shoes like the K-Swiss Supremes, the new ones that have come out. Those ones are more cushioned, but they have a more wider fit in the toe box area compared to Nike, as well as you also have the Wilson Rush Pro 4.0 or the 4.5. The 4.5s are just starting to roll out more and more now, so they're starting to become more available. But if you're looking for a shoe that's going to be very similar, the Wilson Rush Pro 4.0 to 4.5, very durable shoe, has the 6-month outsole warranty on it, as well as has this same kind of, I'll say, flexible material and mesh on the shoe while not having the narrow fit that Nike tends to have. Now, if you're looking for that classic traditional Vapor feel, that's where I have down here. You could look at the ASICS Solution Speed FF3 or the Mizuno Wave Exceed Tour 6. Those shoes are going to be the lighter weight shoes. They're going to have a lot of the cushion they're going to have less of the cushion, just like the old Vapor did, and they're going to get away from this with the Vapor 11 and what Nike was attempting to do with changing up the shoe that we all knew and we all liked. So with that being said, if you've tried the Vapor 11, let me know your comments, especially if you used to come from the Vapor 10. I'd be very interested to hear what you think about the shoe as well because of how different Nike's made it. I'm just kind of shocked as to why they did it. I don't know why they did it. And there's a reason why. If you look, you'll see like Carlos Alcaraz, who wears the Vapor on tour, he doesn't wear this. He wears the older versions. And quite a few of the other players who are Nike sponsored and Nike shoe sponsored, they aren't wearing this if they've been playing long enough to where they could have the other versions. They changed something, and as you can see, they changed a lot. And even the players didn't like it. So that's where you really have to make sure be sure to try on, especially for the $170 price point, because it's a shoe that's going to be a real hit or miss. You're either going to love this shoe or you're going to like this shoe. There's not really you're either going to love the shoe or you're going to hate this shoe. There's not really an in-between with this one. So you want to be careful, especially with the price point and not being able to return it if you wear it on court, because that's a lot for a shoe. Most people, you don't need to spend that much money to get a decent shoe. Like the K-Swiss shoe I mentioned, that's like $139.95. That, in my opinion, it's a better price point for a shoe that's not going to be as narrow, have around the same level of cushion to it, and be a little bit more playable for you compared to this one, which can sometimes feel clunky because of the weight, as well as just not be anything that we expected because it changed so much from the previous generation of it. So with that being said, if you liked the video, leave a like on it. Comment down below any more questions that you have about the Vapor 11 line, or just anything that you know about the Vapor as to why Nike might have been doing this, because I'd be very curious to hear what Nike was thinking with changing the Vapor so much from what we already knew was working. And as well, subscribe to the channel so we can grow this channel and get the information out there from the people who have it to the people who need it. There's a lot of tennis misinformation in the tennis community, and especially using this shoe as an example, most people wouldn't know that there's been such a difference between the old Vapor to the new Vapor. They would just buy it outright because it's like, oh, it's Nike, it's the new Vapor, it's gonna feel great. But then when they get this, they're like, what is this? So subscribe to the channel so that we can grow and get the information out there to the people who have it, to the people who need it. And that way, we can all enjoy the game of tennis that we love so much more, and we can understand our gear so that we can help prevent injuries in all instances. And, as always, take care.